Life was good for this first century Palestinian man when he was 12. He had a good family. He had good health, good looks. He had a good job prospect. At the age of 12, he was an apprentice tent maker, doing, by all accounts, a reasonably good job. He had great friends. He had really great friends when he was 12. Shortly after his 13th birthday, that all changed. He started to lose the feeling in his hands and his feet. And his skin started to get scaly on his arms and his legs. His health, once good, was now trashed. His looks, once good, not so much anymore. His friends, his great friends, had begun to distance themselves. His family had begun to distance themselves. The tent-making gig, all but a memory. His once very supportive and encouraging boss and mentor had fired him. Something about a tent order that he had messed up that he didn't even remember knowing about. He had contracted leprosy, from whom he did not know. When? No idea. At first it mattered a lot to him where he got it, so he'd have somebody to blame. But now, it didn't matter. At the age of 24, he looked like an old, very, very old, scaly man. He lived outside of the city in a place just for people like him. He couldn't go to synagogue. He couldn't go into the city. He was mocked for his looks. He was mocked for his disease. Worst of all, he was unclean. People would shout unclean when they saw him. They would call him unclean and mock him and say he was unclean. He had to tell people he was unclean by law. He had to warn people that he was unclean. 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 He hated that word. He and his friends used to use that word about people like him. Now, he had not been touched, physically touched, for more than 10 years. His mom used to hold him, console him, comfort him, encourage him. His dad used to give him the fatherly pat on the back and tell him he was proud. His mentor, even. He used to wrestle with his friends. They would wrestle and they would grapple. Now he wrestles only with the desire to die. The last touch he remembers was his mom. She was holding his hand, both of hers around his. The day that the doctor said, he's a leper. He spat the word leper out like he was looking at the devil himself. His mom jerked her hands back like she had been touching the devil himself. They ushered him outside of the city to that colony, to that place where there were others like him. He and his friends used to make fun of them, the way they looked and their limp and the smell. They mocked them and they laughed at them. Now he was one of them. His looks had deteriorated. The limp would one day come. He had never known the touch of a woman. Not like that. And he never would now. Did he dare hope? Was there hope? Was it possible? He had heard of Jesus, the Nazarene. This Jesus would heal. He could cast out demons. But would he? Could he for me? Open your Bibles to Luke chapter 5. The story of the leper can be found there. What I just told you, I made up. It's not Bible. We read stories like the one we're going to read today, and we zip right past a lot of the detail that we don't know. We a lot of times try to identify ourselves with Jesus and try to figure out what Jesus would do, and today we identify with the leper. Chapter 5 and verse 12. Luke writes, "While he, Jesus, was in one of the cities, there came a man full of leprosy. And when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face and begged him, 'Lord, if you will, you can make me clean.' And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, 'I will be clean.' And immediately the leprosy left him. And he charged him to tell no one, but to go and show yourself to the priest and make an offering for your cleansing, as Moses commanded, for a proof to them." But now even more of the report about him went abroad, and great crowds gathered to hear him, to be healed of their infirmities. But he would withdraw to desolate places and pray. Okay, so that's the story. That's the story as we know it, recorded by Luke of the leper. We don't know who the leper was. We don't know what the leper's history was. I made all of that up. But as we think about the leper and we think about this story from his perspective, I want you to think about what it would be like to be that man. Jesus healed the man in verse 13. It says, immediately the leprosy left him. Jesus healed the man. Jesus, our first point, met the physical need. He met the man's physical need of healing. And as Jesus followers, people who follow Jesus, our desire and our goal and our job is to be those who meet the physical needs of the people around us. We too must meet the needs for food and shelter and medical needs. Don't be offended, but the reason that we have a welfare system in our country is because the church has failed taking care of the needs of the people of our country. The church has failed, and I don't mean church corporate. I mean church youth. We as individuals have failed our country in meeting the physical needs of the people of our country. Yes, corporate church has failed as well. There's been greed and abuse at the corporate level. But there's been greed and abuse at the personal level as well. If we care, we don't show it. And you can say that for the entire history of our country, really. We have failed to meet the needs of the people of our country. Jesus met physical needs. We should meet physical needs. In verse 13, it says, "And Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him." Jesus stretched out his hand and touched the leper. This guy was not only sick, it's true, he had a very contagious, highly misunderstood disease that attacks the nerves of the periphery, that causes the skin to scale up, causes you to lose feeling. Stuff doesn't just fall off, like in the cartoons. But what happens is, without feeling, you can cut yourself and not know it. Then you don't treat the cut. You don't have healing. You get infection. You may lose the hand because of it. He was sick. He was very sick. But the leper was not just sick physically. His need went way beyond having leprosy removed and a physical healing. Jesus touched him. The leper was truly the untouchable in his community. You didn't touch a leper. In fact, the law forbade the leper to touch you. But Jesus touched the man. Jesus didn't need to touch them. He healed Simon's mother-in-law by rebuking verbally her fever. Jesus healed over distance in multiple occasions, sight unseen, not even ever having known the person he healed. Jesus did not need to lay his hands on this leper, but he touched him. Jesus touched the untouchable. That's our second point. Jesus touched the untouchable. Who is your untouchable? Who will you not touch? Why? Jesus touched the untouchable. Who around you, in your sphere of influence, needs a kind, compassionate, appropriate touch of love? For the record, if somebody doesn't want to be hugged, it's not appropriate to hug them. It's not welcome, it's not compassionate, it's not loving. It's sort of just mean. So be careful of their boundaries, but don't set up artificial ones. Who is that person that needs your touch? Who around you needs that touch? Is it somebody that has offended you or hurt you? Is it somebody from a different wealth class? Socioeconomic class? Color? Race? Religion? Who will you not touch? Who does not deserve your compassionate, kind touch? Who's the leper to you? Jesus touched the man and ministered not only to his physical need of healing, but his emotional need for touch. Third point, Jesus met the emotional need. Yes, he met the physical need. Yes, he touched the untouchable. And in doing so, he met the emotional need of this leper. Again, lepers were untouchable. They could, by law, not touch anyone. They were ushered into their own little community where people without leprosy did not go. And people with leprosy could not leave. Jesus met the emotional need that this man had for touch. You can imagine, even without the sense of feeling, as Jesus touched him, like a lightning bolt of emotion rushed through him. We are relational beings. We need that. We need touch. Jesus met this guy's physical need. He met his emotional need. He touched the untouchable. Fourth thing is Jesus showed compassion. In the parallel story in Mark chapter 1, verse 41, Mark tells us that Jesus, in meeting this man, was moved by compassion. And the word that gets around the idea for moved by compassion used to mean internal organs, like heart, liver, lungs, kidney, not like intestines, but the noble ones. But the idea is it's gut-level compassion. It's that kind of compassion you have for someone that it kind of hurts inside you that they hurt. It compels you to do something for them. Jesus was moved by compassion. Jesus met needs both physical and emotional. He touched the untouchable. He met their need for compassion. He showed compassion. Jesus was moved deeply by compassion. Ever wonder why Jesus sent this man to the priests? Jesus in looking at the wrong story. There was a roof involved. Got confused. Jesus tells the guy, go, show yourself to the priests, and make an offering for your cleansing. as Moses commanded, for proof of them. He goes to the priest and he would be legally declared clean. That meant he could go to synagogue. That meant he didn't have to go back to the colony. That meant he could go into the city again. That meant he could go back to his family and get that touch again. That meant kindness and a smile, not mocking and jeering that he had endured. It meant way more than being healed. It meant being clean. Look at the man's request. He didn't even ask for healing. Verse 2, and when he saw Jesus, he fell on his face and begged him, Lord, if you will, you can make me clean. He didn't want wellness. The blind man asks to see. The deaf man asks to hear. The lame man asks to walk. The leper wants cleansing. Not just of the disease, but spiritual cleansing. He was unclean. That meant he didn't and couldn't relate to God. He couldn't go to synagogue. He was unclean. The leper wants cleansing. He doesn't just want to be healed physically. He wants spiritual cleansing. And what is the word used? He asked Jesus? No. He fell on his face and begged him. The leper knew his ultimate need. The fifth point. The leper recognized his need. This man was desperate to be clean. Not just physically well, but clean. He had a deeper, far more urgent need than just being well. We as Jesus followers need to see the deeper, more urgent need that people around us have. That we have ourselves. It is not primarily our physical well-being that we should care about. It is not primarily that we be well, healthy. It is not for our comfort. It is not that trials and difficulties be taken away. Our bigger, more urgent need is for spiritual healing, to be clean. We need to view bad health and bad circumstances and even outright persecution for what we believe as God working in us to make us more like Jesus. That's what the Bible teaches us, that hard times draw us to Him and are a refining process. Just like the impurities are removed from gold to make it more pure, difficulties are not to be shunned or avoided. They are to be embraced as the process God is using to make you more like His Son. That is our deeper, more urgent need to be clean. Not to be well, not to be comfortable, but to be clean. And our ultimate cleaning is going to come when we pass from this life into the next. But you guys all know that when Jesus died on the cross, He gave us His righteousness. He took all of our sin upon Himself, and He gave us His righteousness. That makes us clean before God. That gives us relationship with God. But you also know that none of you are clean, because you behave badly sometimes. Nervous? You know that the process is not complete. You know the truth about the cross, and you know that Jesus gave you His perfection and His perfect life, and because of that you have relationship with God. But you also know that as you live out your daily life, you are not like Jesus yet. Our bigger, more urgent, deeper need is to be like Him. And the process of being like Him is going to be painful. And it may involve outright persecution. It may involve illness. It may involve all kinds of turmoil and trauma and bedbugs. We need to see the more urgent need in our lives. We need to see the more urgent need in other people's lives as well. If people don't already know the truth of the cross and they haven't surrendered their life to Jesus and accept the sacrifice that He gave in their place, they need to. If they are sick, we can minister to that need and help them. But their greater need is Jesus, not health. Not to have their finances all figured out, but Jesus. Not to be out of prison, but Jesus. And to the extent that those things are drawing them to Him or pushing them to Him, bring them on. Because their biggest need is Jesus, not wellness, not happiness, not comfort. We need to know that they have a deeper, more urgent need than just taking care of their needs. And don't walk out of here and say, Bill doesn't care about the needs of the people around him. I don't know how to minister to all the needs around us. But I already told you the church has messed that up. Right? We as individuals and the church corporate, we haven't done it. And we should. We should be doing it. Our focus at DCC is gospel-centric, pointing people towards Jesus and taking care of their needs. Two things. Point them towards Jesus, take care of their needs. Not take care of their needs and take care of their needs and take care of their needs without ever mentioning Jesus. And not just point them to Jesus. Both things. Our leper recognized his need to be clean. He had a very serious disease. It was going to take his life young. He was going to die in a pretty horrible way. He recognized his deeper need to be clean. Jesus, of course, knew his deeper need to be clean. Sixth and final point is Jesus still makes people clean. What Jesus offers on the cross is what the leper begged for. He begged to be clean, and that's what Jesus offers on the cross. That is what we have to offer. That's the biggest thing we have to offer people around us, is Jesus. Jesus met physical, emotional, tangible needs. We must, as His followers, maintain the balance of meeting all those needs. Spiritual, emotional, physical. All of them. Our title today, message title, is Priority 1. Priority 1 is Jesus. Priority 1 is the gospel. Priority 1 is making sure that we have done everything that we do from a framework of what Jesus did. And so it's gospel-centric, and it tells people about Jesus first, while meeting their needs, if they have them. Priority 1 is Jesus, making Him known. Through that, bringing glory to God for all eternity.